former Buddhist monk and meditation teacher, Puddicombe founded Headspace to bring meditation out of monasteries and into everyday life. In this book, he shows how mindfulness isn't about withdrawing from the world, but about working with your mind in the middle of daily routines, stress, and responsibilities. His approach is practical, simple, and designed to fit into real life. Let's begin. What this book is really about. Here's the strange thing. We live in a time where technology promises control over almost everything. Our calendars, our chats, our tasks, even our sleep cycles. In fact, it looks like chaos should be diminishing, but many of us run into another reality. The only space that truly belongs to us, our own mind, feels less and less manageable. Thoughts speed up, attention jumps, emotions come in fast, and we only notice them when we're already overwhelmed. So the question naturally appears, if the outside world is becoming more manageable, why does the inner one feel more chaotic? Couple words about us. Finding time to read isn't always easy. There are many books, and it's not always clear which ones are worth your time. Would you like to read more, but find it hard to make reading a steady habit? When life gets busy, choosing where to focus your attention isn't always simple. Key Briefs introduces you to the core ideas of widely read and influential books. Each episode highlights what matters, so you can decide which books are worth exploring in full. Spend a few minutes a day staying connected to ideas and choose more consciously what you want to read next. Just 10 to 15 minutes a day is enough. Over a year, you'll get familiar with the key ideas of up to 365 books. Listen while driving, walking, or working out, and turn everyday moments into time for learning. Subscribe to the channel and keep learning at your own pace, choosing which books and ideas you want to explore next. A different way to look at the mind. Today we look at a book that offers an unusual angle on this problem, Getting Some Headspace by Puddicombe. It's not a manifesto of spiritual search or a shortcut to nirvana in 10 minutes. If anything, it's a technical manual for how attention works. A study of how our inner world is built, why it so easily slips into chaos, and whether it is possible not just to survive in that chaos, but to move through it with more confidence. Puddicombe, whose name many know through the Headspace app, came to this topic through a very personal crisis. A series of losses, intense grief, and the moment when every familiar way of holding it together stopped working. His decision to join a monastery was not a romantic pilgrimage. It was a very human attempt to find at least some basic stability. That forced practical experience became the foundation of the method he later adapted for life outside monastery walls. Life with noise, speed, deadlines, and obligations. And if we strip away all the external details, the core question he is trying to answer sounds like this. What if the problem is not the content of our thoughts or the intensity of our emotions, but the mode in which we interact with them? What if we don't have to become permanently calm, and it is enough to stop treating every internal impulse as an order we must obey? What is Headspace really? A reset of the concept. This brings us to the central term that is often misunderstood. Headspace is not a synonym for happiness, lightness, or permanent peace. It's something much more basic. Headspace is inner space, a gap, the distance between you and whatever your mind is doing right now. Think of it this way. You do not try to stop a snowstorm. You step inside a warm house and watch it through the window. The weather does not change. The wind does not stop. But your position in relation to the storm is different. You are not inside it anymore. You are looking at it. That shift is the essence of Headspace. It is a place to stand even while the storm is going on. So why do we lose this space so easily? The answer lies in how the mind is built. The thought factory. It works like a huge factory that never shuts down. Thoughts, judgments, commentary, worries, plans. Production is constant. Our instinctive reaction is to try to shut the factory down. We attempt to silence, control, suppress. But this very attempt becomes just one more department in the same factory. It adds noise instead of reducing it. Puddicombe suggests a very different algorithm, the The mind doesn't have to be quiet. It has to be noticed. We stop demanding the impossible from it and start doing what is actually in our control, observing how it works without jumping onto every single item on the conveyor belt. The mechanics, how attention is trained. From here, we move from theory to practice. In Puddicombe's view, meditation is not about holding attention in one place, which for most people is simply unrealistic. It is about systematically training the return of attention. The process looks like this. You choose a point of focus, for example, the breath. You begin to observe it. After a few seconds, the mind naturally drifts into thoughts. The moment you notice that, your task is to gently, without criticism, bring the focus back. Each return is one repetition, like a set in the gym. Within this training, Puddicombe outlines several basic techniques. Let's look at 3 of them. Technique 1. Focus on the breath. It's almost offensively simple, which is why many people underestimate it. You sit in a stable position. You find where you feel the breath most clearly, the nostrils, the chest, the rise and fall of your belly, and you observe. You don't change the rhythm. You don't try to breathe deeper or better. Your role is to be the spectator. When the mind wanders off, you notice that and bring it back. Not with aggression, not with, "I'm doing this wrong," but the way a good coach brings you back to the exercise. The power of this technique is not in holding attention perfectly. It is in the honesty of each return. Technique 2. Body scan. We tend to live in the head, but emotions are physical first. Anxiety shows up as tightness in the chest, irritation as warmth in the face or tension in the jaw, fear as a cold knot in the stomach. Body scanning is a slow, non-judgmental sweep of attention from the top of the head down to the toes. You are not trying to relax. You are mapping sensations, like a researcher drawing a detailed internal map. This lets you catch an emotion at the stage of a bodily signal before it solidifies into a thought and takes over your entire inner screen. Technique 3. Labeling. This is a tiny move that quietly changes the rules of the game. You notice that the mind has drifted into anxious fantasies or planning. Instead of diving deeper, you give what is happening a short, almost mechanical name. Worry, planning, memory. You don't analyze. You don't attack yourself. You don't search for explanations. This simple label acts like a stop sign for the mind. It breaks the automatic fusion between "this thought is here" and "this thought is me." Integration, from the cushion to real life. All of this sounds convincing in a quiet room with eyes closed. But the real test of the practice is the ordinary day. The conversation that is one step away from turning into an argument. The message that provokes a wave of irritation. The stressful moment when attention collapses onto one problem and can't see anything beyond it. For this reason, Puddicombe talks about integration, weaving micro moments of awareness into the fabric of daily life. He calls them anchors. Micro anchors are tiny reminders that your mind has a choice. The first sip of coffee. Instead of drinking it on autopilot, give that first sip your full attention. Taste, temperature, aroma. Washing your hands. Feel the temperature of the water, the texture of the soap, the movement of your fingers. Crossing a threshold. As you leave the house, notice the shift in air, light, and space. Each of these moments lasts 3 to 5 seconds. It's a refresh, a small reboot of the system. They remind your mind, attention doesn't have to be permanently hijacked by whatever is loudest outside. There is always an internal option. Long-term effect, blue sky as the architecture of resilience. What happens when these practices stop being an item on your to-do list and become part of how you move through the day? Over time, something forms that Puddicombe calls the blue sky. It's important not to romanticize this. It is not eternal sunshine and not permanent serenity. The blue sky is a deep background, a baseline level of stability that remains even when the surface of consciousness is full of storms and heavy weather. Sadness still comes, but it no longer turns into your entire universe. Anxiety still rises, but it does not wipe you out completely. Between you and the state, there is once again that headspace, the room to move and choose. The stories Puddicombe shares in the book illustrate this shift. James, who lived with chronic anxiety, learned to notice its first, barely perceptible movement. John, who used to explode in anger, started catching the initial spark of tension in his body before it turned into a full fire. Their problems did not vanish. Life didn't suddenly become smooth, but they stopped being puppets pulled by reactivity. Real cases, when the reaction pattern changes. In the final chapters, Puddicombe shares real stories, not to impress, but to show how these mechanisms look in ordinary lives. These are not miracle cures. They are shifts in how people relate to what is happening inside them. The common thread is simple. The problem does not disappear, but it stops being in charge. James and anxiety. He learned to catch the exact moment when background unease turns into active anxiety. That didn't erase the feeling, but it gave him a chance to act before anxiety started dictating the rules of his day. John and anger. He began to notice the very first physical signal of anger: clenched fists, heat in the neck. That small pause turned his reactions from automatic explosions into something he could actually choose. Amy and intrusive thoughts. The labeling practice helped her see thoughts as mental events, not warnings or commands. The thoughts remained, but the constant background panic softened. Different people, different situations, one result: distance. What we actually get in the end. So what is the real outcome here? Puddicombe is not inviting us to become completely different people, perfectly calm, always balanced, permanently enlightened. His approach is much honest and more usable. He suggests learning to live with the mind we already have, not fixing it as if it were broken, but changing the way we interact with it. Instead of being a passive passenger, carried along by automatic reactions, we start to become someone who at least sometimes can hold the steering wheel of attention. Headspace is not a magical state you reach once and for all. It is a space you slowly construct inside yourself, a place where you can stand, breathe, and make decisions, even when everything in you is shouting and demanding an immediate, impulsive response. And maybe that is the only change that truly matters. Not becoming better in some abstract sense, but finding a point of support inside your own, sometimes very loud and complicated inner world. Because that point of support is the one thing that really gives you freedom to act rather than only react. Summary. This book is not about eliminating thoughts or emotions. It's about changing how we relate to them. The core idea is simple. The mind doesn't become chaotic because of what appears in it, but because we automatically merge with whatever arises. Thoughts feel like commands. Emotions feel like facts. Puddicombe suggests a different approach. Headspace is the ability to create a small distance between yourself and your inner experience. Not to stop the storm, but to stop standing inside it. The practice is practical and grounded. You train attention not by holding it perfectly, but by noticing when it slips and calmly bringing it back. Each return matters more than staying focused. Several simple tools support this. Using the breath as a neutral anchor, noticing physical sensations before emotions take over, labeling mental activity to break automatic reactions. Over time, this changes daily life. You still feel anxiety, irritation, sadness, but they stop running the system. A stable background forms underneath them. The outcome is not permanent calm, it's freedom. The freedom to respond instead of reacting on autopilot. If these ideas resonated with you, consider reading the original book in full. You'll find the link below. If this breakdown was useful, like the episode and subscribe for more summaries. Which idea from this book stayed with you? Was there something you'd actually try in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if there's a book you'd like us to explore next, let us know. The most requested title will be our next episode.